Now we are. Okay. Okay, we are recording. And we're going to share this screen. All right. Okay. So obviously, let me just get rid of that. Okay, we're on Prezi. Well, first of all, we talked about some of the different techniques or things that you can use on Prezi. Today's workshop is really just talking you through where you are and how you can produce certain things on here while you have a computer in front of you. One of the things that we are going to talk about a little bit today is some of the issues that you're having, because if I'm talking about something that you have already done or already doing, then it's going to be somewhat of a waste of time for you. So let's open up with what are some of the issues that we're having with Prezi, so we can address those and we can show how is what. No one has a single issue with Prezi. Oakley. So you don't have Prezi at all set up? We'll talk about that later. I'm talking about things that, so for most of you should have already started. I've met with tons of people in my office already that are almost done with this presentation. So I'll have to work with you or talk to you about that later. Yes, Mackenzie. So you want to come here and then you want to go to on your. I mean, it's not an issue whether or not it comes back to it, and I don't know if there's an actual way to do that unless you completely redo your whole flow or your whole zone. So I wouldn't worry too much about that aesthetic issue. As long as you are zooming into these things, you know, when you go into insert and you're able to animate and say zoom into these things, that is more of an issue for me than the zooming back out part. Because when you present on this, when you go through your flow, you're going to be zooming into these images that you have selected like this, which is much more important than zooming back out like what you're talking about to this. The whole idea with Prezi is that you get to see the entire picture, right, each time that you're moving through. So the important aspect is that you just worry about keeping your timeline or your Prezi in a good flow, and then of course being able to zoom in to those images, because that's what we want to see. Remember, you are presenting an image, an image program. You're not presenting a document program. So the images are really powerful and really important. So being able to zoom in and connect the viewer with those images is what I'm looking for, which requires you to set up the zoom system. Okay, other questions? Nobody's having any issues. So coming here today was an absolute waste. Hunter.
I'm trying to put a picture on like the entire background so it pops up like over the entire thing.
Yes. So setting up, inserting your picture in the backdrop, I believe, is it style, right? And then background. So go to style, then background. But even in background, you have to click the 3 dots. And then it says over here, upload an image. This is where you upload the image that you want for the backdrop. And obviously you have to have the image saved somewhere so that you can go and get it. There has been some issues with the imagery because based on how big your picture is or your backdrop image will sort of dictate how it looks in your presentation. We had some students come in late. Is Gregory, I see Gregory coming in. Who else did I come? Did LJ come in? Yes. And who else? Weston. Is that it? So Yeah, I mean, background image, you have lots of background images. I applaud you for wanting to put a background image that relates to your Prezi. That's extremely important. So if you can find an image, how many of you have an image that you have found that relates to your project as the background? How many of you do not? Do you want to know how to do that? Gregory, you do? Other questions? Mr. Williams, you had a question? I didn't hear you. How do you do what now? How do you put words in it? Yeah, I can't answer that right now, but we'll talk about that later. I mean, we've talked about that extensively, about images. You've had examples. Your presentation is an oral presentation with this being the imagery. Other questions? How many of you are struggling with being able to find the content or to demonstrate your content on the presentation? Not a problem? Yes.
Just like find a bunch of pictures that go with the wilderness act.
How are you, I'm sorry, are you asking how are you supposed to find pictures that go with the Wilderness Act?
Yeah, I mean, it's an act of legislation. It's not like somebody comes forward.
Well, I mean, that's exactly right. So, I mean, your job is to figure out how to explain that to us. What is the Wilderness Act? What does it do? What does it provide? How are you and I able to benefit from it? And what does it look like outside of the piece of paper? I mean, you're 100% right. It's way, way more than a piece of paper. So how are you going to tell that story of how it impacts us? How are we using it? How does it fit in this field? I mean, those are things that you need to figure out, that you should have figured out well before today.
So you said we're not writing a lot on stuff, like, this is just like my overview.
There you go. You're good.
So like that, and then my picture with my quote.
Okay, great, yeah.
I haven't written everything on here because, like, that's my first slide. I did like pictures and stuff.
Sure, yeah, that's great.
So if that doesn't look like a third grader did it.
No.
Okay.
As long as you know how to zoom into those.
No, that's what I was about to say. Do I need to do that, or is that okay?
No, we want to zoom into every one of those. You want to
Okay.
bring them to full screen.
Okay.
So once
So all my
again,
pictures I need to zoom in on.
so let's make that very clear today. If you have a photo or an image on your screen in your presentation, it needs to be zoomed into. Every single image. Okay, you cannot have a set of images in the background and not zoom into them. That's on your rubric. Okay? It says in there that each image needs to be demonstrated in a way that we can see it. Even if it's old and fuzzy and black and white, that's fine. That even gives more perspective of how long ago you're talking about. And again, zooming is easy. You just have to manipulate that program in order for you to adjust it to do that. Right? Also, it's really important that you delete any unused slide or unused bubble or circle or any of those things. That is not part of a flow. So when we go back to the modules, and I asked you specifically, each one of you, to make sure that you had your project information up in front of you. Whoops, excuse me, sorry. Because in this, this one. In this had the rubric, which is right here. So the first thing is your title, your page, the big picture. Okay, does it have a creative, eye-catchy, informative title? Is the name of the topic there? The date of your presentation, the presenter, the university, Delta State, and your course, PER 300. And then even on the beginning, do you have some quality information in the sense what is considered to be an attractive picture, what this person's about? For example, sometimes they've used a slogan that this person is the leader of whatever, or the something of something. So ensure that you have some kind of a slogan in your title. The index it should be the next bubble or the next slide. Okay? It should have something like the list of the things that you're going to talk about from start to beginning. Does that make sense? Okay, I really don't understand why any of you would be on your cell phone right now when you're taking this day to be in a workshop. I'm sorry, I can't hear the fans on. What did you say? Well, I mean, you need to type something on this to think you're going to, right? You know what an index is? Yeah, exactly. Things that you typed in there. The 5 to 7 introduction slides are the who, what, when, and where. I mean, typically the first one should be the important slide that is, why are we talking about this person or thing or place? Right off the bat, right? Like you should introduce yourself, introduce the person, have it show us what you're going to talk about, and then boom. This person was an impactful person in his field or her field because they did this, that, or whatnot. And we're talking about this person because, you know, boom. This, and then you get into who this person was, right? Why they did this. Hopefully, you have any questions? Did you get logged in yet? Well, what can I do to help you other than you on your phone? What do you want me to do? Well, okay, you're in it. Well, yeah, I mean, some of them are in the top. So you might just need to go to look at, I mean, where is your account? Where does it say your name? Did you log in? There. Well, I know, but you didn't pay for it. Just type it. What is your topic? You're just gonna have to basically start putting your own things in, but it gives you a template to get started. It is, and like whatever they're known for, like you know, Mark Wade was known as the mother of these guys. So that makes sense. Sir, let me just stop this real quick from recording, otherwise it's going to be